And welcome back in to another new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Brett.
and let's dive in. So, episode 5 of Survivor 46. Brett, what are your overall thoughts on this episode before we dive into the full recap and player of the week and everything?
Overall, this I was shocked at this episode. I did not know where it was going, but it was probably the best one of the season so far.
It was.
What about you?
And I was shocked by the end of it because, as our listeners and fans know, we introduced a segment this season with the power rankings, and we have had the same person at the top of each of our rankings for the past 2 or 3 episodes in a row, and that person went home. So,
I was gonna say that ever blew up.
yeah. So, really fun episode. There's definitely some interesting moments from all 3 tribes I can't wait to get into. So, let's get into our normal recap. Player of the week, who you got?
Player of the week this week, I'm gonna go with Maria.
With who?
Maria.
Nice. How come?
What I thought was really smart for her to recognize Jem's level of control within the tribe, be willing to vote that way, and then going back to what you see today of making it, and we'll get him in more to the same tribal, but not because he used 2 votes in that tribal council. Whether Gem went is such a great game move for anybody not necessarily know who played the advantage.
Yeah, I will say I think using the extra vote was unnecessary there. If they wanted to take Jem out, which they did, they had the numbers anyway. They had her, Charlie, Tim, and Ben locked in. There really wasn't a need for the second vote, so I feel like she kind of wasted that, but she had a good episode overall.
Unless you get in a situation where somebody doesn't follow through with something they told you.
Fair enough. That was just my initial thought. My player of the week, I'm sticking on Siga tribe, which is still my favorite tribe of the season. And I am going with Ben. And the reason being, the target was initially on him because they thought Tim had the idol. And Ben was able to talk to Charlie and point out how hard Jem had been playing, Jen's threat level, the weird like machete conversation that I saw on Instagram of an Instagram video from RHAP of Rob Sesternino kind of mimicking the machete conversation, which was really funny. And talk Charlie and point that out to him and convince Charlie she was a threat, who then Charlie was then able to convince Maria, who up until that point had been wanting to go with the girls. So Ben not only saved himself, but kind of secured Charlie and Maria by connection to Charlie as allies to him and Tim.
Yeah, Ben did have an amazing episode. We've seen him playing the whole season, but not really in the front of the episode. And then now he just really burst out as a contender this week.
Mm-hmm. And none of us were high on him preseason either. And he's had such a
Yeah.
good season so far. And by the way, quick fantasy points update. Let me pull up the points. So I am at 48 points. Brett is at 18 points. And after this week, Kevin finally has points. He's at 14 points. So you're only 4 points ahead of him. I need both of you guys to start losing players. Because at this point, I feel like I'm not winning the fantasy game. I just want my winner pick to do well. And we'll get into her tonight because we're 5 episodes in and I have no idea what to think of her yet because it keeps changing. But so let's get into the episode. And the post tribal, my first note here is one is a quote from Kenzie, and she says, "Tiniest tribe there ever was." And what I typed here was, Oolong got all the way down to one, so no.
Yeah. No. But
And Matt Singh
I
got down
get
to
what she
two.
means. Same as like Matt Singh got down to two before they were just dissolved into the other two tribes.
Yeah, and Matt Singh got down to two, but started at six. Yanu
Yeah.
got down to three and started at six. Oolong got
Yeah.
down to one, and they started at freaking 10. Like, I'm not a
If
huge.
anybody's listening who may have read when we talk about our favorite seasons before and always says that I underrate Palau, that's why I rate Palau in my bottom like 3 seasons.
I don't love it as a season, but I love Stephanie. So
Okay.
it's a good season for her. And she follows it up with another good season the next season. But anyway, that was my only note from the Yanu post tribal. Did you have anything here?
Yeah, that was the main note. I mean, not a lot happened at this point. We'll talk a bit more about Yanu as they go along in terms of how the divisions are kind of working. But there's not a whole lot here because I mean they all knew what was going to happen. No one's shocked when Banu goes home. That was a well, I was about to say unanimous vote, but we didn't even have a vote.
Yeah. And quick correction that, of course, it was Kevin, who is, I guess, the tribal council chat fact checker. The amount of times he texts me when I get stuff wrong. And I said, I only remembered three times that someone went home without voting. And I said Banu, Brandon Hance, and Jeff Varner. Ian Rosenberger also went
Yep.
home straight from the buoy. So shout out to our fact checkers on that one. But so from the post tribal, we moved to Siga, and we see this girls' alliance that's been forming with Jem and Mariah and Maria. And Mariah says, I Mariah's talking about how she does trust Jem, Maria, and Charlie. And what she doesn't trust is Charlie and Ben spending so much time together. And she talks about how likable and charming Ben is. And that's just a fantastic read. Like, great
Yeah.
awareness, great knowledge of your tribe mates and the game you're playing.
I don't know about you, but Mariah in this episode was giving me some big flashbacks to when Aubrey had the idol in Edge of Extinction as Victoria.
Yeah, a little bit. And so the next note I have for that, still from Siga, is I just love this scene of them all like teaching each other how to salsa dance. Like,
Yes.
Siga's just such a fun tribe. Like, they're my favorite tribe this season for sure.
They've got to be one of the tribes that's just having the most fun out there in many seasons.
I can't even think of a tribe they remind me of on that front. Like, normally I have a comparison, but
Yeah, I don't either.
they're just so much fun to watch because we have something. We got apparently because a couple weeks ago, like we got the scene and it got talked about a lot of like Charlie and Ben having this song battle of Taylor Swift versus Metallica, and apparently
Yeah.
that is not a one-time thing because
No.
we have a little montage here of they just do this constantly, and that's hilarious to me.
Yeah, I almost got a thought once of like, you tell me if you think this would be fun, maybe for the summer or something. But like, say we could get like Kevin to come back. You and I need to do that of some survival related topic
Uh-huh. That'd be fun. I'd love that.
and get him to host it.
Yeah. And so my next note here after the salsa dancing scene is when Charlie talks about how he and Maria are basically in control because they have
Yep.
Jem and Mariah on one side and they've got Tim and Ben on the other and them in the middle. And according to Charlie, nobody knows that he and Maria are so close with each other. So
It's true. That's the best place to be as long as you're someone who's not indecisive.
yeah, and we've seen people have that position be indecisive, and somehow in San Juan del Sur, we saw John and Jacqueline end up in this position multiple times without
Yeah,
people realizing they were the swing votes 3 or 4 times in a row. But I agree though. I feel like Charlie and Maria have really positioned themselves in a great spot up to this point.
absolutely.
So, do you have anything else from Siga before we move on?
No, let's move on because I think we'll want to talk about our winner picks soon.
Yeah, so we're moving on to Nami. And the first thing we see here is everyone in the tribe is idol hunting, except Liz, who's just in the shelter for some reason. And I don't really get it. Like, why? Like, I guess it's nobody can accuse you of having an advantage or idol and
That's
targeting
true.
you because of that if you're the only one not hunting for it. But you're also really missing out on an opportunity here.
Watch it be one of those seasons though where they like bury it right underneath the shelter.
Yeah. Well, if it's
She
anything
finds
like
it.
when they did that on 35, everyone will accuse production of throwing it for the person that finds it under the shelter. So,
Yeah,
because I'm
probably you'll never do it.
pretty sure people still accuse them of doing that on 35 of throwing it for Ben, which
Yeah, I think so.
they don't throw things or script things on Survivor. So, just
No,
kind of a dumb accusation, but I it looks weird.
that's social media for you.
Yeah. And
No,
so
no.
here,
Another show I'm watching has been having people accusing production of stuff all afternoon. So
oh, what show is that? Okay. Oh, okay. And so throughout this idol hunting, we see, and this is where I think we can have some good conversation here. A conversation between Venus and Hunter, who, if you remember the last episode,
yeah,
she was wanting Hunter out because he's a threat. And she tells Hunter, I don't get why she does. See, this is what I mean when I say I don't know what to think. Because either last episode or the episode before, I thought she looked like she was improving and doing really good. Then she has a scene like this where she tells Hunter that he's a big threat and target, and people will want him out. And he says, do you? And instead of saying no because we can work together, she says, no, I don't want you out because you're a meat shield for me.
why would you say that to somebody?
I don't know.
It was bizarre.
And also this whole conversation felt kind of weird and contentious because they both know the other person doesn't like them, but they're pretending that that tension isn't there.
Yeah,
But my question to you is, and because this is a conversation I was having with someone over text, do you think this conversation hurts Venus? Like, because I don't feel like it's that big of a hit because like it's a really stupid thing to say. I don't feel like it's that big of a hit because basically all it means is that the two of them aren't gonna work together, but they probably weren't anyway. This just kind of solidifies
yeah.
that.
I don't think it's anything. It's not what I would do, but I mean, it's kind of obvious too. Hunter is if people are playing a meat shield strategy that Jeremy started and that's still the most successful way to play Survivor. Hunter's gonna be that person on this tribe at least until merge.
Which I think the I don't know what Survivor defines as merge. What you and I both define as merge, I think, is next week based on the preview. But
It's like it.
and I agree. I don't think this hurts me is a huge hit. The person I was texting with did, and they had good reasons, and that this pretty much just isolates the two of them from working together. But I don't think they ever were anyway. Like they both want the other person out, and they both know it. So I really don't think
Yeah.
it changes anything. It just is unneeded tension is all it does. And so Hunter does find the beware advantage right after Venus walks off. And so before we move back to Yanu, do you have anything else from this kind of short Nami scene?
Not yet. I'll have a bit to say more about Nami later in the episode with Hunter.
I do love Nami though. Nami is an interesting tribe to me. Like, they're not super fun to watch the way Siga is, but Nami's just interesting to me. And I've said this
So
before
many
because
diverse characters on their tribe.
there's 5 people on the tribe now, and even when there was 6, I would have said this. This tribe somehow feels like everyone's all on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like the other 2 tribes, there's kind of a clear dynamic of who's together and who's on the outs. And especially with Siga, we see that on the after tribal. But Nami, legitimately, I don't know who's working together. They
I don't
all
either.
work
And even if Landon didn't go home, we still wouldn't know that.
like,
And it's easy enough to put it simply as, oh, they haven't had to vote yet. But I mean, a tribe like Luvu never had to vote, but we knew Danny and Deshaun and Sydney were a tight 3.
yeah. And I just think about it. We've seen early on Tevin want Venus out. We've seen Tevin want Soda out. We briefly saw Randon want Venus out, but then they started working together. We've seen Venus want Hunter out. Like 3 or 4 names have gotten thrown out on this tribe, and for a tribe that hasn't gone to its first tribal, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. If I mean, now it looks like they're never going to go to tribal council as a tribe, so it's kind of unfortunate. But it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened if they voted, because I could have seen that breaking it. Like, let's say they voted at 6, I could have easily seen it being a 3-3-3 tie going to Rocks.
Yeah, true. Well, 2-2-2 tie. There's 6 of them.
Yeah,
And so going back to Yanu, we have, and here's the exact way I wrote this down, is I put Q is saying he's ready to go home and be voted out again. Are you kidding me? Question mark. And then right under that I put a little because he's second or third time he's done this season.
I
Then right
think
under
with
that
Q,
though, I have a little bullet point where he explains himself. Oh wait, this is just an act. He wants people to think he's ready to quit so Kenzie won't play her shot in the dark. And for a cast of people that didn't see 45, which means they've never actually seen shot in the dark work, these people are going to in crazy lengths to make sure people don't play their 1 in 6 shot of safety that robs you of your
yeah,
vote that these people have never seen work before. I've not seen this before.
it's true. I'm not sure if it necessarily is because of shot in the dark, though. I get the sense with Q that he's just used to being such a competitive guy who's very athletic and probably grew up, be it playing football, playing basketball, just hates losing. And is just
Yeah,
probably going through paranoia of living on the island and not getting that high of winning challenges that he probably was seeking when he was told by production, hey, we're going to put you on the next season.
but he did say in a confessional, I think, that he was acting it up so to try to avoid Kenzie playing her shot in the dark,
Yeah.
I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. That was but moving on, we have right after that, right after Q talks about wanting Kenzie out, we see Tiffany talking in a confessional, talking about how she is in the middle of Kenzie and Q. Both of them think they are her number one, and if they have to go back, they're both expecting her to vote for the other one. And
Tiffany is in a great spot in this game.
until she has to go to tribal and make a decision. It's a good spot until you have to actually make a choice.
You do, but then if let's hypothetically say we don't know anything about the preview, even or that they lose, even if she does, she has to make a choice. Yes, that's difficult, but she survives, gains the trust of that who whichever person she saved, and knows if she loses again, that the worst that can happen is she goes to fire.
Yeah. So, and we'll obviously never know the answer to this
And
now, but
also, I just remembered off something that crossed my mind. She has an immunity idol, so she could theoretically negate a fire making challenge and just say, I win.
true. We'll never know the answer to this, obviously, but right after my little note there, the question I have is if they do have to go to tribal, who do we think Tiffany sides with there? If she has
It's
to,
50-50.
yeah, I didn't have a
I'm
predict.
thinking if you're a member of production and you're like, say, a camera person for CBS and you're on the beach, you probably have a good idea of which way she would go in that situation. But for the little content that we see out of everything that happens in this game, it's impossible to predict.
Yeah, it is. My gut feeling says she goes with Q, but I could see it going either way.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else from Yanu here before we go back to Siga?
That's really what's the point I said earlier that I wanted to talk about Yanu is Tiffany's vote.
So we go back to Siga, and like pretty much every period of time that we as fans spend with Siga, we have this weird little fun moment that has nothing to do with the game or strategy. Last time it was the salsa dancing, and this time we have Tim talking to the Tiki Man, which is the immunity idol that they've won from challenges. And we little montage of little clips of Tim just being, "Hey, little Tiki Man, how are you, Tiki Man?" This is like that's hysterical. I love that.
I mean, he did say that he would play like Shamo, so it's sort of fitting in now.
Oh, he was the Shamar one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's a more fun. He's definitely more fun than Shamar was, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have an interesting scene. Another. This is a really like Tim is kind of the star of this little time section here, because right after him talking to the Tiki Man, we see him and Jem walking through the woods, and like we as fans have seen that she found the advantage and re-hit it.
Yeah.
They have not seen that, but walking through the woods, Tim has somehow figured this out and confronts Jem about it. Be like, hey,
And I think I figured out how he figured it out.
okay, good, good, because I have no idea. But he basically says, hey, good job moving that advantage. Pretty slick there, trying to get her to admit it. And she lied. She does a better job lying than she thought she was going to. Because in a
Yeah.
confessional, she talks about how when she's at home, she giggles when she lies. And she didn't do that this time. But good for Tim for somehow sniffing that out. How do you think he did that?
If you look to the scenes where they're digging for whatever is there, where it says like dig beneath you, Jem played that very poorly. And that's that the tribe is digging and Jem seems to be standing behind them and watching.
That's I'll have to
She
go back
needs
and watch that.
she needs to be in the dirt with her tribe mates if she doesn't want to let it go and make it look like that she has thinks there's actually an idol there, not just standing above them. Oh, good job, guys. Let's look for this idol.
Yeah. And if that's the case, I wish we would have gotten some sort of confessional from Tim pointing that out, or just like even a little shot of him like glancing back at her. Because as you're saying this, I'm vaguely remembering it that she kind of was just standing there watching them dig.
It
But
wasn't even in this episode, really. It was mostly in the last episode.
yeah, that's why I'm having trouble remembering it. But I remember a little bit now that you're saying it. But credit to her a little bit. I mean, she didn't play that last week very well, but she does a good job lying here. She doesn't completely give it up.
Yeah.
So that was just a really quick little siga scene. And moving into the challenge, which is combined immunity and reward again. Sassy Jeff is back before the challenge.
Yeah.
We haven't met him for a few seasons, but
That's for
yes,
sure.
he's going through his little spiel where he goes, "Oh, the first tribe to finish gets this, the second tribe to finish gets this, and the last tribe to finish, also known as," and he pauses, and all the players fill in the blank with the losers because that's what Jeff always says. To which he responds, "Oh, I thought the other two tribes might say Yanu there." That's
That
hysterical.
was great. Yes.
Probably not funny if you're Yanu, but that was hysterical.
No, but probably funny for Yanu when they go and watch it back on their TV.
Yeah. And so I don't really have notes from the challenge itself. We don't need to do a play-by-play recap of it. Fun challenge, obstacle course followed by throw it. And I've said this before, most challenges now are just an obstacle course followed by a puzzle. This one was an obstacle course followed by throwing things and a slingshot, which isn't quite a puzzle, but I still wish we had more diversity in challenges. I digress. That conversation's for a different episode. But Nami wins again. They finished first place. Yanu had fallen behind, but made a good comeback. And it's on the slingshot. Them and Siga are going head to head. And Yanu ends up finishing second, avoiding tribal for the first time. And I also want to give the production and editing credit here because the last shot that won it for Yanu was this really cool, like slow
Yeah.
motion shot of Q doing the shot, seeing everyone's reactions, and then it goes back to real speed, and the bag hits the target and knocks it over. Great
See,
editing.
this is what I was getting to earlier. Is my hypothesis on editing was that we were seeing all these moments of Q talking about how he wants to quit leading up to this exact edit where he's going to finally get that win.
Yeah, and even though they've only not finished last one time, he's carried them in challenges. He's beasting
Yeah.
out for them, and the other tribes have noticed that too. But when Siga finishes last, the note I immediately wrote down was, "This will be interesting to see play out. No idea how this will go, but there's a few different ways this could shake out." And we saw pretty much all of those ways be considered and weighed here, as we saw. Tim was the main vote at one point, and then it was Ben, and as we mentioned, ends up being Jem. But we'll get back to that. I love seeing Yanu finally experience winning, or at least not losing. Nami technically won, but just the genuineness and the raw emotion of Yanu after this challenge, just being relieved and happy and all of the feels was a cool scene.
It was.
And we have another journey, and the way they've done the journeys these past couple episodes reminds me of Micronesia and how in the pre merge of Micro, the winning tribe got to choose two people to go to Exile Island, one from each tribe. Same concept. Nami wins once again. They again get to choose one person from each tribe to go on a journey.
Yeah.
And Hunter
This was a
volunteers.
fun.
And they really don't have to pick because Hunter volunteers from Nami. And then Tim from Siga and Q from Yanu both kind of volunteer themselves also.
Yeah.
So smart from Nami here to not just send people and make them feel like you're targeting them, but to be like, hey, do any of you want to go? And kind of
Yeah.
still let them pick themselves.
That was smart.
But the next note I had here is you not being at camp for a while here is a huge chance for Kenzie to try to pull Tiffany closer to her. And we really didn't see a ton of the two of them at camp alone, but I feel like that's probably what was happening.
I would imagine.
So let's
Have
dive
to be
in.
unless one of them shut it down, but that's just asking to go home at that point.
Yeah. So let's dive into the journey then, because this is a really interesting journey.
This
Aside
is a
from the
great journey.
fact that it is not the card game and it's different than the game we saw last time, because the Banu Liz Ben one person left and two people played. This one, two people leave and only one person plays. So we've seen three journeys now this season, and they've all been differently. And I like that. I like that it's. I loved the card game when I thought we were going to get that every time, but I kind of love that it's been different every time so far.
So, question: did you solve it?
I I haven't pulled up the picture because like I would need to have them in front of me and just kind of the screenshot from it is just too many all at once. I kind of would need them in front of me, but I guarantee you I would have been able to. I can rattle off all 46 seasons off the top of my head in order right now
Yeah.
and tell you who won each of them. So I'm
I
watching, and I wrote it down somewhere. And before, and okay, we'll talk about the game, then backtrack a little bit because before he actually plays the game, there's a really interesting scene. But the game Hunter plays is he's given, I don't know the number, but a certain number of Survivor season logos and told,
Yeah, 20 seasons.
okay, given 20 season logos and said, put these in order. And my immediate thought, and my mom texted me this too today, I believe. I think she just watched it today, maybe yesterday. I probably would have taken 20 seconds to do that
Yeah.
because if I because I've seen it circulating on Twitter, like the screenshot from the episode, and I haven't just maybe I'll take that and just on little note cards or torn up pieces of paper write the names on them. But if I had them physically in front of me and I can just slide and arrange them, that I could do that in no time. You probably could too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling my family when we were watching this, my dad asked me if I could do it. And I was saying, here's the way to do it that Hunter didn't do, is he was trying to focus on moments of each season, not the order. You really just have to start at one. Look at all your codes and go, okay, Borneo. Australia's not there. Africa's not there. Marquesas is two.
Yeah.
Thailand's three. Amazon's not there. Pearl Islands is four. All the way up to 39.
The problem with that though is he said before they started that when his friend was introducing him to Survivor, they watched his friend showed them in like in order of how much he liked them, not chronological order. So Hunter may not know that, be able to rattle off the numbers like that.
That's why he had zero chance of winning that game.
Yeah, well, and I do love the little memory lane nostalgia scene of how he's remembering each season for though. Of
I have a bit of a different opinion on that, but
I overall I loved it. I did write down just
yes.
because your favorite is Michelle and you love Korong. It did make me chuckle that his because most of them were accurate. Oh, this is the season this happened. This person won this season. Cook Islands was Parvati's first season. Oh, Korong was the season Caleb got medevaced. That just made me chuckle for whatever reason. Maybe it's because of
Yeah,
you and because of the show, but that made me laugh.
probably.
So going backwards a little bit before we go back to Yanu, the beginning of this challenge, because we've got Q and Hunter and Tim, who are basically like the challenge beast alpha male, physically speaking, archetype person
Yep.
of each tribe. And Q pitches to the three guys and basically says, we're all three going to be targets at the merge. What if the three of us make an agreement to stick together and we each bring one additional person along with us?
Love this. Because it's so smart. that if it works, when all you have to do is just get each of them know who their number one is. If you can get your number ones on board, I mean, who knows if this is going to work post merge or not? If it does, we're going to have three physical threats also played the strategic game and go to the final six.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think of because that never happens.
The reason I
This
don't know if it will work though is a key part of this is correctly picking your number one and the one person you'll bring along. And Tim immediately says, "Oh, I can get Maria to be my one."
Yeah.
That's her she's not going to take Tim and join an alliance with Tim over what she has with Charlie. That's not
True.
happening.
No. But
I think,
if it did work, it would be really neat to see because it would be like Survivor meets the challenge where you have all the physical threats keeping each other right to the end.
yeah. And it will work if Tim realizes Maria is not his one, that Ben probably is.
Yeah.
But what I wrote down here is interesting, is because I'm thinking the selfish side of me is thinking about how this affects my winner prediction and how I could possibly be right again. And if this alliance doesn't happen for whatever reason, that could help Venus because the three physical guys will probably get targeted right after the bat because people will be afraid of them in the individual challenges, doing like what Joe did in Cambodia and win 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And at that point, that will give Venus 2 or 3 rounds while those guys are being voted out to be social and make bonds with Siga people and Yanu people. Because I'm getting the feeling she's
Even though,
not blending in with Nami any better. But if she can get those couple rounds to bond with people from the other tribe, she can go deep into the merge, I have a feeling.
oh, absolutely. And maybe even more than a couple of rounds if those like number ones that they brought with them then start getting targeted.
Yeah. But if this alliance does happen, this all goes out the window because I feel like Hunter will be a part of that alliance. And after this conversation, Hunter will probably want to go for her. But and she's not working with Nami. That seems pretty clear based off of the edit and based off of her kind of recaps on Twitter from the episodes. But because I saw something about her talking out of like not working as hard around camp because she was on the bottom and she was going to get voted out if they went. So, but if this alliance doesn't happen, Hunter, Q, and Tim probably get targeted first. I could really see Venus blending in with some of the siga or the Yanu people, and in which case she could go pretty far into the merge, I think.
Absolutely. Especially Yanu was what I was thinking.
Yeah, her and Kenzie and Tiffany, I could see that being a trio. And
Yeah.
I think there's a likelihood of this happening because, like I said, Tim sat there and said, "Oh, I immediately know who my plus one is. It's Maria," and it's not.
And maybe somebody like Liz joining that to make it 4 votes.
Yeah, but I don't think the Alpha. I'd love to see the Alpha Alliance happen. I think Tim's gonna mess it up because he thinks his plus one is Maria, and it should be Ben because
Yeah.
Maria's way closer with Charlie than she is with Tim. We've seen almost. I take that back. We've seen the parent bonding scenes of Maria and Tim, like in the premiere and this week, but not near what we've seen with her and Charlie.
Exactly. Definitely not new. Her and Charlie are going to be tight as a group of two, but they might need to add some numbers once they hit a potential merge beach next week
which would
from
be
the other beaches.
which would be where someone feeling isolated like a Venus or after this episode probably like a Mariah feels.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything else from the Yanu scene that immediately follows the journey other than I just love finally seeing happy camp scenes and camp life from Yanu because any camp life we've seen from Yanu so far has either been we're about to go to tribal, or it's depressing because everything's awful and we're cold and we're wet and we're terrible. So we
The
finally
only
see them.
thing I wanted to add in here, and I can't quite remember which tribe said it. We might be siga, I think, but is these how we were talking in a previous episode about how journeys can lead to suspicion when you go. Even at this point, not playing leads to suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't enough for both Q and Tim to come back and say, hey, we needed only one person to play. Hunter played. Everyone instantly goes, that sounds like complete crap. Of course, everybody gets a chance to play.
Yeah, which wasn't even the case at the last one either, because only 2 out of 3 people played at the last one, and that's what I'm saying earlier. I like that. I still kind of think they could just get rid of this, like the Journey Island, and it would help with the advantage overload complaint a lot of people have. But I
Yeah,
do like that the journey is not just the same thing throughout the entire season.
agreed.
That it's
Absolutely
been
agreed.
different every time we've seen it. And so going back to Siga, pre-tribal, is I guess I had forgotten this, but we see Jem say that she doesn't have a vote for this tribal unless she finds the idol. And she very quickly gets the idol. But the girls are still confident that Tim has it. And they decide to use Mariah's extra vote and put 3 on Ben and 2 on Tim. Which, again, up to this point, the girls think Charlie is with them. So even if Tim has the idol, you're splitting votes. You go, like, I don't know. Even if you go 2 on each, and Tim and Ben are 2 on one of them, you still have the numbers in a revote. I just
Yep.
using the extra vote here just seems like a waste to me. Maybe I'm not
But at the
being.
same time, as we're about to see in a minute, not using your advantage can also be a complete mistake. So I can't fault Maria too much.
I can't, but it's a missed opportunity. She could have used that later on, I think. The interest,
Yeah,
and we'll get into this now, I guess, because Jen doesn't use her idol. I think I loved it at the time to as like the rehiding it as a way to get suspicion off of her. But thinking
yeah.
back, it really wasn't a good decision because
No,
it wasn't necessary, but also like she's gonna get flack because everyone gets flack when they go home with an idol in their pocket. But even if she does play it, everyone's then upset with her for putting them through hours of digging for no reason. Like,
yeah.
she really couldn't play it either, or else she would have been gone next week anyway. Rehide. The more I think about it, rehiding the advantage clue was just really a dumb decision because nobody was
It was.
suspecting her anyway.
It was amazing television at the time that just didn't pan out in this season.
Yeah, and she, like I said, she's gonna get flack for going home with an idol, but she really couldn't play it either yet because that would have made her a target and sent her home next, probably.
Probably. And it's a much.
Yeah, and so the girls go on to tell Charlie of this plan, and Charlie talks about how Ben being the target is hard for him, but he does realize how great of a social threat Ben is. And my takeaway from this quote is just, wow, Charlie has great adaptability.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm close to this person, but I realize they are a threat. I may not be able to save them. And he ends up being able to,
It's
but
it's great that he noticed that too, because Jem really starts to overplay her hand in the last 10 minutes of the episode.
yeah. And so let's get into that because we see a lovely, weird little scene of Ben and Jen like talking as they walk through the woods. And like her fake pitch to Ben is trying to figure out who they're voting for is I'm not with anyone. I'll vote with the two of you. Just tell me who to vote for. Who are you voting for? And as she does this, I have a pen here for the YouTube audience. She's got the machete in her hand and she's like doing all sorts of things, waving the machete around. And like, that'd be terrifying. Like, as I'm getting grilled by you, you're waving a machete around everywhere.
It brought me back to Matthew and Amazon.
Oh yeah, just sharpening it. And Ben makes a note here that Jem has been making feel kind of on edge as alert. And he says a great quote here, which kind of shows me Ben has a better knowledge of the game than I gave him credit for preseason, which is she's in endgame mode way too early. And she was. He's right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. She
also,
was she was playing like I would hope to see a potential winner playing at Final Seven at Final 14.
yeah. And I do love the scene of Ben sitting next to the fire, also kind of mimicking the machete thing.
Yeah.
But last note before tribal council is Charlie and Maria are holding all the cards heading into tribal. They can side with the girls and take Ben out, or they can side with Ben and Tim and take Jem out. And this quote we saw from Charlie earlier, talking about how him and Maria are close and people don't realize they're such a duo and they're right in the middle of everything. We see this come to fruition. The two of them are heading into tribal basically as the decision makers. So good for them putting themselves in that spot.
Yeah. Absolutely. The and they were able to make that decision, so they really played this episode really well for both of their part.
Yeah. So heading into tribal, the first note I have is I just found it funny how they were talking about how they do pretty much literally everything together as a group. And I also, before we got to the votes, they were talking about how close they all are as a tribe and how much they love each other. And my note was this super closeness means someone's going to be blindsided. And I think Prope said something along those lines also.
That he did.
And she was. And the last note I have before we get into all our other stuff, Maria writing Jem on one vote and Jamila on the other one with different handwriting on
What I
each
was
one.
talking about. That was so smart.
That itself was really smart. I still don't think
And also
using a
that one of
unit.
them was printed and one of them was handwritten.
Yeah, that itself was smart. I still feel like using the extra vote itself was kind of a waste, but oh well. Like she'll be fine probably. But
Yeah.
my last note is wow. Like I was shocked at the end of the episode. Not only did Jem go home, but went home with an idol in her pocket, even though, like I said, she kind of trapped herself. She really couldn't play it. But she had been playing really well. Like we both had her at the top of our power rankings for like 3 weeks in a row.
We did.
And so, do you have
And
any?
then it just got a bit too. She probably knew she was at the top of everybody's power rankings, and it just got a little too, almost too easy for her.
Yeah, she got kind of careless and reckless.
Yeah,
So, do you have
I'm good.
anything else from the episode before we get into the other stuff?
No, I'm good. This was great.
So, power rankings. Who is your top?
Power rankings so far. I'm gonna go with Tiffany this week.
Yeah,
And again, the same kind of thing. She's just in that middle spot where if they were to have to vote, I don't think there's any chance that she gets any votes. Plus, she has an idol in her pocket if she thinks somehow Kinsey and Tiffany are going to turn on her.
yeah. With the merge coming next week, though, I'm not sure how much having one strong ally. your two allies are gunning for each other a little bit. So I'm curious to see the three of them going to emerge together. But I'm gonna go with a tie at the top of mine here and say Charlie and Maria. Because
Nice.
the two of them as a duo really showed that not only are they a strong duo who can talk things, because when Charlie first approached Maria about going for Gem after talking to Ben, she was apprehensive about it. But to see that they can work together, talk things through, and come to a decision together, as well as put themselves in a power position like that, I think the two of them are safe for a while.
Yeah.
So who do you think is at the bottom?
This is a complete crapshoot. So I think we touched on this earlier. I don't know anymore. We are going into what looks like some sort of merge. So I'm just gonna go with Hunter on this, simply because that tribe is a mess when it comes to, it's not a mess in terms of being successful, but it's a mess in terms of it's all over the place. If anybody could be on the bottom, he's now made this secondary alliance that could put a threat on him. And also, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but how am I not going to go for the player who knows that Korong is a season from a pre-merge event?
Yeah, Ko-Rong is the season where Caleb got medevac.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt somewhere. Um,
No, Hunter. Korong is the season where Michelle won against Aubrey, where Marks the chicken stayed alive the whole time, and where Scott got told by Ty he's not getting an idol right as the after the votes were already read.
I will say to Hunter's defense, Caleb's medevac was kind of a wild one, even by medevac standards.
Yeah.
But so, align blindside first boot. You want to go first?
With Gem going home, I'm going to give you three of the best pre-merge blindsides in the history of this game.
Real quick, my bottom, because I forgot to say it, is Mariah, because her and Gem were tight. Gem's gone, and her and she and Maria and Charlie just very clearly picked Tim and Ben over Mariah. So Mariah's my bottom. Back to what
Yeah.
three names you were saying.
Okay. Align blindside first boot with Gem going. I'm going to give you three of the most shocking pre-merge blindsides in the history of this game. So your choices are from Survivor Millennials versus Gen X, Michaela Bradshaw. From Survivor Pearl Islands, Trish Dunn. And from Survivor, one of your favorite seasons, the Australian Outback, Mitchell Olsen.
Ooh, interesting. So it's Michaela Mitchell, and who was the second name you said?
Pearl Islands,
So
who
you
was blindsided by Sandra and Krista after she targeted Rupert.
okay. I think I will first boot Michaela and just I don't think me and her would work well together. Both with Survivor and Challenge USA. She just her personality is way more blunt than mine, and she
Yeah.
it just seems like a very combative person at times. And that's just I don't think the two of us would work well together. I think we'd butt heads because that's not how I would be playing.
Agreed.
I will blindside what's her name from Pearl Islands.
Trish?
Yeah, I'm bad with names right now because I'm aligning with Mitchell. I think that I can work with
Yeah.
Mitchell. We didn't see a ton of him. He was on a tribe full of Survivor legends that all came back, so he kind of next to those big personalities faded into the background. But I feel like Mitchell and I could work well together, so I'll align with him.
I agree with those three, and you make a great point. Who would have ever known when he was on the, or when any all 16 castaways were on that plane going over the Australian outback, that if you're on Ogre and you're a player like Mitchell or like Cal or Mad Dog, that you're like, I'm sitting here with Tina, an almost two-time